What's going on, everybody? Josh Engleman for Awesemo.com, and this is my FanDuel single-game breakdown for tonight's Monday Night Football game between the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Chargers. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter, @Josh Engleman, so you can get updates to my sim results as we get closer to lock. And let me know in the comments section who are your favorite options at MVP and at the flex. Now, for some high-level information. 115.5 is the average optimal score for this slate. Median salary used, $58,500. Not the most value in the world on today's slate, but there's a little bit. 2.7 Saints, 2.3 Chargers, the average makeup of the winning lineup. Saints are 7-point favorites entering the game, 50-point total, and they're going to be without Michael Thomas. Time to take a look at the MVP spot. Okay. I don't have public ownership yet, so the best that I can do is just explain what's coming out of the sim, and right away, we've got a big one at the top. Alvin Kamara is $16K. He's the most expensive player on the slate. He's the highest projected player on the slate, and he shows up in the optimal MVP spot 37.5% of the time. That's basically double every other person available. No one else is even close. Drew Brees comes in second. He's 14.5. He shows up there 18% of the time. So we're talking about north of 50% going to just Kamara and Drew Brees. They are the clear top two options at MVP on FanDuel today. Only two other guys are even close to them. Justin Herbert, 14K, 12% of the time. Keenan Allen, 12.5, 10% of the time. He really helps you out from a salary perspective. If he can get into the end zone twice, that's the way that Keenan Allen can get you there. After that, you're really taking some stretches. Traquan Smith, 6%. Mike Williams, 3.5%. Emmanuel Sanders, 4.5%. Should have read those in a different order, but you guys get the gist of it. Everybody else is sort of like middle 1% type guys. It's going to be concentrated at the top. Kamara, by a mile. Pay attention to his ownership. If he gets, like 40% of the MVP spot ownership, then he starts to become a bit of a fade. If he's well south of my 37% number, then feel free to load him up. But it's Kamara, Brees, Herbert, Allen as my top four at MVP. Now, when we move to the flex, it's a little bit different because of the way that you need to save some salary, and since they don't have the same sort of salary mechanism that DraftKings has, my favorite flex play is actually Justin Herbert at 14K. You save a little bit of salary from Brees, for $500, comparable projections. Herbert shows up 45% in the flex spot. Drew Brees a little bit behind that at 42%. Then you get into the two guys in the 30s, or at least in the high 30s. Kamara at 16K. So if you're not using Kamara in the MVP spot, still looks really good in the flex spot. Can't avoid it, but I think Kamara works better there if you do go to like a Keenan Allen type MVP lineup. After that, you're dropping all the way down to 8K. Mike Williams, actually, the fourth best odds of being in the optimal lineup in the flex spot, 35% of the time. And then we just hit this sea of everybody from 25 to 30. Keenan Allen leads those guys off 30.5% at 12.5. Traquan Smith, actually, a little bit ahead of Keenan Allen, 35%. And then it's Emmanuel Sanders, Hunter Henry, Will Lutz, Michael Badgley, Lat Murray, all about 25% of the time. So you're going to need to hit like one or two of those dudes just to get this right. And that's kind of it for anybody that's really interesting. I'm not all that interested in going too much lower than Mike Williams. Justin Jackson shows up in the optimal 9% of the time. Deontay Harris at the 6K mark shows up 5% of the time. Marquez Callaway at the flat 5K minimum shows up in the optimal flex spot 4% of the time. There's just really not a lot going on below Mike Williams. I think it's really tough to make a good lineup as of right now with any of the major value options on FanDuel. Now, it's hard to talk about fades without ownership because that is what you're fading. You're fading the public. I can only take a guess as to where the ownership is coming in. For example, Jared Cook is not a guy that I'm interested in regardless. I assume his ownership will be north of the 5% that I project his flex odds at. And if that's the case, I'm just not going to be there. 11K, simply too expensive. And he might not play. So there's also that. Other than that, I'm guessing Kamara is more owned in the flex than I have him. So that could be an interesting place for you to get different. Just use him more in the MVP spot. but none of my data, none of the table that I'm looking at really points out any obvious fades. I think Josh Kelly might be a hair too expensive. I think that Emmanuel Sanders might also be a bit too expensive, but it's never going to be any sort of major extreme. I don't expect those guys to be pulling a ton of ownership either way. So pay attention to it closely when our ownership gets released, and pay attention to my Twitter because I'll have the ownership embedded in the tables. Alrighty, folks, that will do it. That is my FanDuel single game breakdown for tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Saints and the Chargers. One last time, please hit the thumbs up. It helps me out a ton. Maybe there will be live scoring for FanDuel tonight, and you guys can actually enjoy yourselves. Be sure to let me know in the comments section who you like at MVP and Flex, and follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. I want to be able to give you guys these updates as we get closer to lock. I mentioned this in the DraftKings video, which you can find somewhere around here to click on, that I would see you guys Thursday. I learned in between these videos that there is no Thursday night football this week, so I won't see you Thursday, but I will see you next Sunday for Sunday Night Football's Showdown Breakdowns.